Okay, 7 o'clock, we're going to start right on time. I would like to welcome everybody to the February 10th, 2022 meeting of the Waukegan Planning and Zoning Commission. Can we have a roll call, please?
Anderson?
Here.
Bill? Griffin?
Here.
Grimes?
Here.
Haug?
Here.
Hintz? Rivera? Rodriguez?
Here. Okay, we have 5 members present, which is a quorum. We currently have 8 members on the commission, so in order to have a quorum to be able to conduct business, we need 5 members present, and we do have a quorum. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the December 9th, 2021 meeting. Motion by Commissioner Haug to approve.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Anderson. Have any comments, questions, corrections to the minutes? If not, I'd like a roll call vote, please.
Haug?
Yes.
Grimes?
Yes.
Griffin?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Hintz? Rodriguez?
Yes. Motion carries. Minutes are approved. Next item, 3.0, is audience time. This is an opportunity for anybody in the audience who would like to address the commission on any item, any topic that is not on tonight's agenda. For the items that are on the agenda, there will be time to comment at the time that those items are being discussed. But this is an opportunity for anybody who would like to address the commission on any item that is not on the agenda. Yes, would you please come forward? And I would like to swear you in, please. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do, sir.
Okay, please state your name.
My name is Larry Broston. I'm the owner of Auto Parts City, and I've been before the zoning commission about 20 years ago.
Welcome back.
Pardon?
Welcome back.
We had a very good, but I'm here to explain our auto recycling business, and I think I'm being a little proactive for you. This is probably a shock for everybody, but the city is not giving me answers, and in order to put an auto recycling or scrap facility, the first thing you have to do is go to the Planning Commission and the Zoning Board. And then that is what we did, and we went to, and we purchased the property on 2800 Northwestern in Waukegan, and we were denied our, to put the salvager. So we went and sold the property. Right now, we never got a occupancy permit. Right now, there is a property on 10th Street in Waukegan, Illinois, that has their occupancy permit, and they are running an auto recycling facility, scrapyard, and they have their occupancy permit, but I don't understand how it can possibly be. And when I'm been calling everybody to, this is a big issue for you as a city. As everyone knows, there are these bigger issue today than there was 20 years ago. I run a very legitimate operation, and I'm a little offended when I called the police department. Everybody tells me the same thing. What happens is cars are they're stealing these catalytic converters. And these catalytic converters are precious metals, and they're worth a lot of money. And because of that, they have to be processed the right way, and putting a facility in this city of Waukegan to help condone what is going on. This is creating more trouble for the police department. They've already are very upset about this. Yet, I was told to keep my business to myself. I'm not going to. I'm going to call the newspaper next. If this isn't shut down, this place, it's not zoned properly, and it's operating. I'd like to understand what this is all about. I don't know. Something's wrong. I don't care about how much money these people spent on fixing this property up because it doesn't need to be in the city of Waukegan. I was told the city, we don't need another junkyard in town 20 years ago. So I moved my business to Gurnee and built a $10 million facility and ran it the proper way for the last 10 or 20 years, 15 years. And we do a very nice job. I don't think the city of Waukegan is going to want to help promote auto theft, and that is what's going on in this facility that has an occupancy permit. It needs to be shut down immediately. You guys can do what you want with it, but I know what's going on, and I can explain it to everybody. But until somebody wants to listen and instead of telling me, I need to just go back and sit down and do it and wait, we'll take care of it. You're not going to take care of it because they're making this go through your system under the table somehow. It's open, it's operating, and they don't have the zoning to do it. How do you get zoning to operate an auto recycling scrapyard? That's all I have to say. You guys can deal with this at a later date, but I just figured it needs to get out before the next zoning meeting. So thank you for your time, and I understand this is something you guys have no knowledge of, but this is a gigantic problem. I mean, financially for the city.
Can you give us the address?
Oh, you know. The city knows. They've already issued building permits. You get so it's on 10th Street. It's called, the name of the company is DC Tricor. It's on Jacobson. They took the Jacobson building and bought it and spent all this money. I think everybody knows. I'm just putting it out because I'm not going to wait around any longer. So thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. This is not an item that is before this commission, but I'd like to ask our city attorney, is there somebody that this should be referred to, or how do we respond to this?
Well, I'm sorry, I guess I should answer your question over here, but there's nothing to respond to. This is what needs to be known as a fact. They opened up their business without a license. They don't have a license. I don't know what license they have, but they don't have an auto recycling license because the way the law works, you cannot get a license to do what they're doing unless you go to the Secretary of State. The Secretary of State is who issues the license. And when they give you an auto recycling or scrap license, a the only way they will do that is to have the municipality show that the zoning is properly zoned for an auto recycling yard. It's called usually a conditional use permit in the city of Waukegan. I don't think it was ever put through. You guys never did that. I don't think. Well, I know you didn't. So they're operating illegally, and they need to be shut down. And it will help this auto theft because the alderman in this area is fully aware of it and is asked, and it was told not to be worried about it. They'll figure it out. They'll take care of it. Okay, that's the city council's problem. You're the zoning board, but that's why it came tonight. So I think this is a horrific thing that's going on, but I do thank you for your time. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer what I know, or what I can state as facts. But I know what I just told you tonight is the gospel truth about how the law works, because I've been doing this for 60 years. I'm 72 years old, but I started when my father, people know him, and was very well respected, and we always did everything by the book. So.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
So, Chairman Marcus Martinez, on behalf of the City Corporation Counsel's Office, in answer to your question, if an entity or if a business is operating outside of its zoning restrictions. To me, that's a code enforcement issue, and so, and community development. Just correct me if I'm wrong. That would be something that perhaps can be elevated to community development, or if code enforcement, if it is a license through the Secretary of State, and I've never looked into junkyard licenses, but if it's a license through the Secretary of State, I imagine that the Attorney General's office, the Illinois Attorney General's office, can be consulted as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to address the commission on anything that is not on the agenda tonight? Okay, next item, item 4, old business. I don't believe there's any old business. Item 5, new business. We have 3 items. Item 5.1, zoning calendar number 2646, is a request by the petitioner Jonathan Sellis and Chaz Davis for a conditional use permit for a detailing and hand car wash establishment at the location known as 2206 West Grand Avenue. Who is going to present on this? Just one of you or both of you? Okay. What I'd like to do, I'd like to swear you in, please, before you. Please raise your right hand. You swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
Okay, please state your name and your affiliation to the project.
My name is Jonathan Sellis, and I am looking to start a detailing business, hand detailing business, so no automated washing or anything. I have several years in the business working for my father, who's worked for somebody else, and now we want to step out on our own and start our own business. Me mostly taking the forefront, taking the big step to put it all on me.
Excuse me, is that microphone on?
Try to
Oh,
speak.
my bad. Yes, and I am looking to start a detailing business, and hopefully you guys accept, give us a conditional use permit. We have sat with the meeting that we had before, and we explained everything about how we're going to be running the business. So all the things that they're wanting from us, we're capable of providing. Other than that, if you have any questions for me,
Any of the commissioners have questions of the petitioner? No? Okay, is there anyone else here who would like to speak out either in favor of this request or in opposition to this request? And if not, I'd like to ask for the city's position on this.
Staff does recommend approval for this conditional use permit. This building has been in existence for quite some time, and any other type of adaptive reuse of this building, I think, is out of the question when it comes to any kind of commercial or retail without significant reinvestment within the building. And as it currently stands, I think that the use as a car wash, hand detailing, is a suitable use. They've got a lot of interior area for, work areas to work on the vehicles. Our only concern was the front waiting room area for the customers, in which we had brought that to the applicant's attention, and they said that they were definitely going to do some reinvestment there. We also had some safety concerns about the way that the vehicles would be exiting the building from the front, and because the building sits so close to the sidewalk, we were concerned that any car that would be coming out would not be able to see pedestrians or maybe even a car that might be pulling away from the curb. So we did request that they have staff escort the cars out of the building so that they have clear vision as to who may be coming or going by on the sidewalk. And the applicant has no problem with allowing that as well, or at least doing that. So with the conditions that we have outlined, staff does fully support this.
Do any of the commissioners have questions for city staff? Commissioner Anderson?
I do.
Okay, please.
So this is a multi-tenant building, and is this business the owner of the building or a tenant?
This is a tenant of the building. He would be occupying one of the 4 spaces. There's a space that's on the corner, which I think used to be Pope's Florist. And then there are others, which I think is also a printing business toward the end, if I'm not mistaken. But yes, there are 4 tenants within that building.
Okay.
Some of those spaces are actually vacant at this time.
I'd like to ask Mr. Sellis, staff is recommending approval with 16 conditions. Have you read all the conditions? And do you feel that you will be willing to live up to all the conditions?
Definitely.
Any of the commissioners have any other further questions? Okay, there was one letter of objection that I would like to read into the record. This is a letter of objection. It says, those folks have not been ideal neighbors. Their lights bleed onto neighbors' properties, and they do not pick up their trash. It blows onto neighbors' property. I went there once for service, and they sprayed my car with the windows open and ruined my radio. I asked 5 times to speak to owner and never received a call back. He was absent in Florida. Also, their fire life safety needs improvement. There was only one means of egress during the winter. This is submitted by James Sikora, 2206 Waverly in Waukegan, 60085. And I think this is the only letter that was received either of support or objection.
And just to be clear, this objector is speaking about a previous
tenant.
They are not speaking of the current applicant who's looking to occupy the building.
Thank you for that clarification. Okay, commissioners have any further questions of either the petition?
I do have one question. If I remember right, that has been a hand car wash facility for many years.
Yes,
I'm talking 50.
correct. Long time. We're the next to take it over. And we're going to do it right this time. Not like the last tenants. We're actually looking to improve the area and give support to the surrounding businesses. Our clients, we value our clients very much. And our waiting room, we're going to take care of it very well for them to be comfortable while they're getting their cars detailed.
I do remember the neighbors being concerned there. Is there a way you can meet with them or?
Yes, I think the neighbor behind us, right behind us, is our family. So we know them. I'm not sure if I know a James, but we will definitely go around and talk to them. We are going to be keeping all of our business inside of the property, inside the building especially. So all the noise and any noise complaints will probably be none at all or minimal. And if they have any issues, then we'll likely go and discuss it with them. That way the city doesn't have to deal with any of our stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Any
guys.
other questions or comments? Okay, in that case, I would like to ask for a motion to either recommend approval or recommend denying approval for zoning calendar number 2646. Again, a request by the petitioner Jonathan Sellis and Chaz Davis for a conditional use permit for a detailing and hand car wash establishment at 2206 West Grand Avenue. Do we have a motion?
I so move.
Motion by Commissioner Anderson to recommend approval. Do we have a second?
Per conditions.
Sorry?
Per conditions.
Yes, subject to the conditions, yes.
I'll second that.
Second by Commissioner Griffin. Any further comments or questions, discussion on the motion? Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Haug,
Yes.
Grimes,
Yes.
Griffin,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes, motion carries.
Congratulations. Good luck.
Congratulations, good luck with your project.
Good luck.
Thank you, council. Thank you.
And the next step is going to be what now? What date?
The Community Development Committee meets on Monday, March 7th. That meeting will be in this room, probably close to 5 p.m., but Steve will let you know when the time is set.
Thank you very much. Next item, item 5.2, zoning calendar number 2647, is a request by the petitioner, City of Waukegan, for a text amendment to zoning ordinance defining dog training facility and assigning it as a permitted use in the B2 and B3 districts. Will be presenting. Don't fight over it.
Over the course of the last few months, probably dating back to, Halloween and even Thanksgiving, we've had about 3 or 4 calls from people actually looking to open dog training facilities. And in anticipation of what may come about, we've been looking at other communities and other ordinances as to how they've been treating such facilities. And the one thing that has always stood out is the fact that we've got people who would be certified, through their training. Let me refer here. Within the definition, we've got, geez, now I'm losing my space. There we go. They have to be accredited by a nationally recognized organization, and we had done some research as to some of those organizations, in which there were 3 of them. The reason that we are seeking this accreditation is because we don't want people who would just be opening up a dog training facility that we later find out is more of a dog training facility that is for dog fighting. And that's something that we definitely don't want to promote within the city of Waukegan. So, we'll entertain anybody who would want to come, who is accredited, and would operate such a facility within the city of Waukegan. And because of the fact that we more or less are outlining some of the requirements that we would want to see within this facility, we don't feel that it would be necessary for them to go through the conditional use permit process. I think that we get a little bogged down and a little redundant with some of the conditional use permits that come through, where we're more or less just issuing the same CUP with the same conditions over and over and over again. And I think it's a lot better to, promote these types of establishments and facilitate the opening of these operations without the undue burden of having to go through the conditional use permit process when there will already be standards in place. And we really believe that the accreditation is important for these facilities.
Just to add, our current ordinance designates a permitted use for dog food and supply stores. So, a retail operation. And we also designate dog kennels or dog boarding facilities. But there's a gap, and it's a little bit unclear for people where a training, where people bring their dogs, come to a class for an hour or an hour and a half or whatever it is, and then leave, where that fits in. So this is really to clarify that. We feel that the impact on neighbors is sort of the same thing as taking your kid to a dance class or, any other kind of class where you're going, people get out of the car, go inside the building, do their class, come out, get back in the car and leave. So it's the same sort of impact. So we think it makes sense for it to be a permitted use because of how it affects the neighbors. And we think it helps to clarify the language so that people understand where that kind of facility fits within our ordinance.
And the other thing, too, to add that we've also looked at is that this is we're not going to classify this as one where boarding would be allowed for these dogs, overnight boarding. So, the owners are always going to be with their dogs when they come for the training. It's not one where they're just dropped off and trained and there's no real control over the dogs. So, there will not be any overnight boarding. This is not a kennel. We do classify kennels, and those are a conditional use within the city of Waukegan. But as Noel, clarified, this is kind of that in-between use, which we feel would be best suited as a permitted use.
Could I ask a question? Do you have like how much property would be necessary if they're like training and exercising and dogs are outside, being taught how to walk, how on a leash and everything?
I don't think that is something that the city should have to dictate. I think that if someone is going to operate a clean operation, that they're going to find a location that will provide that ideal size for the property and the facility. And if the owners of the dogs don't find this to be adequate, they're definitely not going to bring their dog to this facility to be trained, and therefore they're going to lose their clientele. So I think that it would be in the best interest of the operator that they find the ideal facility with the right size for those types of training and walking and other things that would be necessary.
So,
All right, wait, excuse me a second, Mike, we're having an issue with the... Steve. Just with Steve, he's not coming through? Okay, just need to get you closer to the mic, okay?
All right.
He was signaling me, I just couldn't understand what he was saying.
so a B2 community shopping district might be, forgive me because I'm going to use some brands here, but like a Pets Mart or a Pets Plus or something like that, offering classes in their facility. And are they then having a conditional use, or not a conditional use, they would be a permitted use for dog training as well as retail? Or are you just, because there are lots of pet stores that do that kind of training. Are they then a retailer? Are they a training? Or are they both? Or how does that work?
This would be strictly for those that are operating as a dog training facility.
Only training?
Yes.
Okay. And when that happens, why would somebody want to be in a shopping district rather than, and you have two districts here, shopping and general commercial? It seems to me, having been a pet owner and having used training facilities, most of the training facilities are in a commercial district of some sort. They're not in a retail area. Why would we have a training facility in a retail area? I don't know. Maybe you've,
Well,
it's a question.
with the various business districts that we have, there is the retail, there is commercial, but they're all basically a commercial district.
Okay.
One thing that we've always acknowledged over the last 10, 15 years is that the lines are fairly blurred between the B2 and the B3 district as far as the types of uses that are in those districts. So the B2 and the B3 districts are somewhat similar, that we felt that there's real no differentiation between the two districts that would preclude the B3 from the B2. The B3 district is more of your automotive oriented district, whereas the B2 is more of your commercial, which isn't so heavily automotive. So like what you've got along Grand in Green Bay or Belvedere in Green Bay, those are a lot of your automotive, oriented districts, which is B3.
Okay. Thank you.
Any of the other commissioners have questions? City staff?
I think it's a good possibility that people are going to want to do that out of a residence too.
And that's exactly why we want to dictate where it should be permitted. You know, if anything is done within a residential district, then we can flag them and say, you know, that's not allowed. You need to go to a commercial district. Because I think having it within a residential district, it's definitely going to be more of an impact for the neighbors, or the residents, I should say.
I agree.
You know, so I think this sets the standard as to where we would allow that.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, I'd like to ask if there's anybody else here who would like to speak out either in support or objection to this request. Okay, then I'd like to ask for a motion. Looking for a motion to recommend approval or recommend denying approval to the request by the petitioner, City of Waukegan, for a text amendment to zoning ordinance defining dog training facility and assigning it as a permitted use in the B2 and B3 districts.
Move to approval.
Motion to recommend approval by Commissioner Haug,
I second it.
second by Commissioner Anderson. Any further discussion on this motion? Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Haug,
Yes.
Grimes,
Yes.
Griffin,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Ince, oops, he's not here. Rodriguez.
Dog
Yes, motion carries.
psychologist that came to the.
Can I ask one question of city staff with this afterwards?
It's true.
Are these being inspected on a regular basis so that you know, in fact, that it's dog training, not whatever?
Sure. So a business license would be required, and there's an inspection done by both code and fire as part of the business license process. And then there's a business license renewal every year.
It's
It's an annual
okay.
license. So if there were code complaints or that kind of thing, that should get flagged in that renewal.
Okay.
We hope. And certainly if there are neighbor complaints to code and those kinds of things, then they
Okay.
can re-inspect on those grounds.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 5.3, zoning calendar number 2648. That is a request by the petitioner, City of Waukegan, for a text amendment to the rules of procedure for the Planning and Zoning Commission. Mr. Martinez, are you going to present?
They all have copies.
Yeah, I think we all have copies, yeah.
Now I've got two.
Once again, Marcus Martinez.
Martinez, would you speak into the mic, please?
Can you hear me?
Yes, much better.
Once again, Marcus Martinez for the City of Waukegan. I'm presenting an amendment to the Commission's Rules of Procedure, particularly, if I can draw your attention to Article 5, Section 6. The amendment is the inclusion of the following language: the chair shall be the judge of all relevance and material of evidence. The chair may require a preliminary statement of the nature of the evidence proposed to be elicited from any witness. Repetitive testimony by multiple witnesses shall not be allowed. Testimony unrelated to the application shall not be allowed. Personal attacks shall not be allowed. Otherwise, the rules of procedure are remain the same.
Are you looking? I withdraw.
And just a point of clarification, just so we know what we're talking about tonight, this is up for presentment. We're not voting to approve this amendment tonight. According to the Commission's own rules, This would be Article 8, Section 2. A proposed amendment must be presented in writing at a regular meeting preceding the meeting at which the vote is taken. So tonight it's just being presented.
We had a discussion about having an item that allows the chair to limit the amount of time that a speaker wanted to speak, and we've never really had an issue. We haven't very often had an issue with that, but just in the event that there were a really hot item and we had a lot of people that wanted to speak, and I was concerned that I wanted to see something in writing that would authorize us to limit the amount of time that anybody would speak. You know, I mentioned, when we just had discussion, there was one time when we had a lot of people, a couple of times actually. One time in particular, I remember when we had the River Road project and we had a lot of people lined up to speak, and we didn't have any kind of a time limit. But what it went on for a long time, and what I ended up doing was trying to find out, once people started being repetitive, I would ask people if they had anything to discuss that had not been previously discussed. And in fact, I even asked at one point if they had somebody that wanted to represent them, if they had a representative that could speak and present all of their concerns. And, as I said, we don't have that very often. I mean, this is not the hottest meeting in town. But, just in those circumstances when we have a lot of people, I just want to have the option to limit, because we don't impose a limit, like the school district has a 3-minute limit. We haven't really imposed a limit, but I just want to have it on as part of our rules that we have the option to impose a limit of time if we deem that it is advisable to do so.
Absolutely, Chair, and I do recall that conversation. Just to be clear, the Chair inherently has that power. What I can do is amend the proposed amendment to include the language that the Chair may limit testimony to 3 minutes as he deems, or as the Chair deems necessary.
Well, sometimes, just so that we have it in writing, so that we're not called into question if we ever have to do that. I feel that it's advisable to do that. I don't want to have any civil rights lawsuits against this commission.
But if you say that, then you have to give everybody 3 minutes.
Well, they'll all get 3 minutes, and they'll all say the same thing.
Exactly. And the way you have it now, you have some flexibility to manage what's going on.
No, I don't think we can manage it at all if we don't have a limit. The city council does well with 3 minutes.
So the language is permissive. The Chair may limit testimony to 3 minutes. And so in instances where you feel that 3 minutes is not sufficient, of course, you retain the ability to allow testimony to continue. By adding the amended portion that I just stated, it doesn't technically change your powers, but it does, as you mentioned, put it here in black and white so that there is something that you can point at and say, this is where this authority comes from.
Yeah, I think you should leave it the way it is and leave it at the chairman's complete discretion. Otherwise, you're going to get yourself into trouble, I think. Mm-hmm. So I like the way it's written, and this is a long time coming. I'm glad it's finally coming up.
And I would certainly go along with what our city council, city attorney recommends.
Mm-hmm.
I would recommend, and like I said, this is a power inherent with the chair. I would recommend keeping it as is, and if you feel the need to add that sentence in the future, we can do it anytime.
At least with this, we do have discretion to
Right.
have some limit.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when we didn't have that before. And at least not in writing.
Right, right. Yeah, you've always had the ability to stop personal attacks, to stop repetitive testimony, that sort of thing.
And that's something that I also wanted to talk about for just a minute, and that's this whole idea of personal attacks. We haven't had that type of situation happening a lot here, but, you know, city staff did point out to me that there were some instances where there were actually personal attacks against members of city staff. And I just want to assure city staff that I will be more on the lookout for that type of thing. I'll be more sensitive to that and try to make sure that everybody is civil and, you know, we're not here to attack anybody or to allow anybody to be attacked. So that's just something we all need to be cognizant of. And as I'm chairing the meeting, I will be, you know, more sensitive to that and just try to make sure that that I don't let things go, you know, beyond the point where they should go, you know, where staff are starting to feel uncomfortable. So.
Thank you, sir.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, Mr. Saber.
The one thing that I've had a conversation with staff about is the one thing that we have to keep in mind is that this is a public hearing, and because it's a public hearing, people are coming to express maybe some concerns or support over a particular petition, and some of those concerns could be numerous, or some of the reasons for supporting it could be numerous and could exceed that 3-minute limit. So I think there should be some sort of differentiation between when you have a public hearing compared to when you just have a public meeting. So I think that if you were to implement a 3-minute limit, I think that that would limit a person's ability to express their full concerns over a particular petition or their support for a particular petition.
And I agree with that, and that's why I have never in the past asked for any kind of a limit, because I know that there are, this is a hearing, this is a public hearing, and there's information, relevant information that sometimes needs to be heard. And I've always felt that we should give people as much time as they need to make their position understood. And it's just in, you know, a lot of times there are circumstances where people are just talking and again, you know, being repetitive and you know, in those cases, then we want to, you know, have the authority to limit. And I wouldn't even really want to mention a time, like 3 minutes, because what that does, what I've found that does is a lot of times people have something to say that may only take 1 minute, but if they know they have 3 minutes, they'll take that extra time just because they know they have it. So I don't want to encourage people to, you know, be more wordy than they need to be. All right, any other comments or questions? All right, then what I'd like to do, oops, let me find my agenda here. I'd like to ask for a motion on zoning calendar number 2648. We are looking for a motion to either recommend approval or recommend denying approval to the request by the petitioner of the City of Waukegan for a text amendment to the rules of procedure for the Planning
My
and Zoning
apologies, Chair.
Commission.
Sorry to interrupt.
Just a reading.
It would be a motion to continue or a motion to table.
Oh, that's right, we're not going to vote on this tonight.
Yes, just for presentment.
Okay, you did say that, and I'm aware of that, thank you. Okay, will this be up for a vote then at the next meeting?
Yes, under old business, I believe.
Okay, and if the commissioners have chance to review it and come up with some other concerns or suggestions that they might want to recommend, it can be continued also, right? I mean, there's no rush to approve this.
That's absolutely correct.
Okay. Okay, good. Thank you very much.
And if I can just mention, so I emailed each commissioner just the rules of procedure as it stands. My contact information is on there in case you need any information or if you have a suggestion.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'd also like to thank you for following up on this so diligently. I mean, we discussed this, I think it was at the last meeting, and you didn't waste any time. You know, you dug right in, put this together, and really appreciate the work that you did on this. And just the fact that you are responsive to our concerns. And, you know, again, I want to express how appreciative we are that you are here at our meetings. We really need your input and, you know, need that guidance as we conduct the city business. So thank you. Okay, that, I believe, is the end. Is there anything else under new business that we need to discuss?
Not under new business, just an informational item.
Okay, then let's move on to item 6, informational items, please.
If I may, I'd like to take the opportunity to introduce you to a new member of the Planning and Zoning Department team. Isabel, would you stand up, wave? This is Isabel Guadarrama. I stole her from the engineering department. She's been with the city almost 4 years. She's been with us a month, and she's already been a fantastic addition. She's a GIS expert, along with having a planning education and being very brilliant and having a wonderful personality and being a great addition to our team. So we're excited to have her. And there she is. You want to pull your mask down just a little bit so they can see your face? So once we're not wearing these, you'll know her when you see her. Thank you.
And welcome. We look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Michael, I have a couple of things that I want to ask. I have questions.
Absolutely. Go ahead, please.
I know that I'm a broken record, and I really mean to be about the Ramada property. Is there any progress whatsoever with that property? And if there isn't, what can we do to make it look better?
It is definitely a challenge. They are still in court, the ownership group, et cetera, fighting over it, and how they're going to resolve their differences, I don't know. I'm not privy to what's happening in court, so I don't know exactly the current status on that front, but we will refresh the engagement with code enforcement on it and see if there are any other avenues they can pursue. And Marcus, maybe you can help me follow up and see if they can elevate it legally with code enforcement, other than just
I mean, they could
notices.
be in litigation for 10 years, and that's unacceptable.
I agree. We have an adjudication process and a fine process. I'm not an expert on that because I'm not in code enforcement, but I'll work with Marcus and see how that can be elevated on the code side.
And then the other thing is we've got 2 instances of businesses apparently that don't have permits or licenses to do what they're doing. And, you know, there's a history. These gentlemen have come in and done this correctly and asked for a conditional use permit. But what do you do? I mean, you know that these places are existing. What does the city have as leverage to change that? You know, if I just want to set up shop, I can go set up shop and that's okay?
So we don't always know what's happening. I know people assume that the city knows everything that's out there, and maybe there's somebody in the city who does, but it doesn't mean that the people who need to know do. Generally, that's code enforcement. So if you know of something, please make complaints. They have to have a record of complaints about issues in order to step it up to the next level. If there's just an assumption that everybody knows, there isn't necessarily a record that is actionable going forward.
So is Mr. Broston's bringing it here considered a complaint, or does he have to do something else in order to initiate an action?
Because it's been brought here, I will bring it to code's attention. I don't know to what degree it's already on their
Okay.
on their radar. but I will bring it to their attention. And, if it's already on their radar, if it's somewhere down the process where they have a record in place already, then it's further along and maybe it's getting to the point of being able to issue citations or, be able to go to administrative adjudication. But there has to be that record, and you have to allow a certain number of days to cure issues and that kind of thing. So there's a time factor on the city's part. So the more there are complaints about things that are problems that are made to code enforcement, the better the record is, the more actionable those things are. Do you have anything to add to that, Marcus?
I don't, but I am willing to speak with you and get to the bottom of this and see what we can do. If we have to pull in Stu, we'll do that as well. But yeah, if after this you want to talk offline, we can kind of weigh our options.
Yeah. What I can add that I do know about code enforcement is that the new building commissioner is restructuring the assignments of the code officers, changing their districts and how they work together. He's also just recently added a code enforcement supervisor who started this week. And he has a request in his new budget request for another person who will specifically address zoning and business license issues. So hopefully that gets funded for our May 1st fiscal year. And that should help specifically on those things because it won't be pulling the people out of their regular routes, for lack of a better word, to address those things. That'll be somebody who responds specifically to zoning complaints and business license complaints.
Okay, thank
That
you.
should help. He and I both think that it will. But we'll elevate that tomorrow. I did have one more informational item, if I might.
Sure.
Sorry.
That's okay. I walked away and Steve reminded me because he's my memory so often. He keeps me on track. We expect to need to have a special Planning and Zoning Commission meeting before the next regularly scheduled meeting. So we'll need to look at dates that work for our team, but if you have any dates in the next month that you're definitely not available or that you prefer, if you would let Steve know what those are, and we'll try to get you several choices for dates that you can rank for second, third choice, not available, whatever.
How soon do you think this would be?
It's a little bit hard to say. The special meeting would be related with one agenda item only for the site plan approval for the casino, for their temporary casino. They're on an expedited schedule, and we're working with them on several concurrent paths, and that is one of them. Our zoning ordinance requires a site plan approval. Again, this would be just site plan approval, not anything about casino operations, financing, what the money is to the city, none of that, just site plan approval and only for the temporary casino, which they hope to open this summer. And we expect the full casino will be open in 2 to 3 years, so that would be the window of time that the temporary casino would be there. We'll come back later on with the site plan approval for the full casino, once that's complete.
Noel, a question on the special meeting. So the special meeting is going to have just the one item, site plan for the casino. Would it then be too much to have the rules of procedure amendment on that meeting?
I wouldn't have an issue with that if the commissioners don't, if the chairman doesn't.
No objection on my part.
Actually, I prefer not because I'm not coming to that meeting. We're doing the work, so.
Oh,
I
okay.
would just come and sit there for an hour and for one item. So
Gotcha.
I'd prefer if you waited.
Okay. That's fine with me if the chairman is agreeable to that.
Sure.
So we'll have that item on our March 10th meeting. And sometime before then, we'll try to get the site plan approval special meeting.
Okay. Our attorney just advised me that it would be a little neater if we were to actually vote on continuing. Is that the word, continuing?
Yes.
Continuing item 5.3 zoning calendar number 2648, since it's on the agenda, but we didn't vote on it tonight. And I knew it was going to be on the agenda, but as a non-voting issue tonight, but just to make it neater so that there's no confusion, I'd like to ask for a motion to carry this over, to continue zoning calendar number 2648 to the next meeting, shall we say the March 10th meeting?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Howard,
Second.
second by Commissioner Griffin. Any discussion on that motion? Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes.
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 Yes, motion carries. We will discuss that at our March meeting, March 10th meeting. Okay, no other informational items? Okay. I'd like to ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
By Commissioner Griffin,
Second.
second by Commissioner Anderson. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned at 7:56.